Alrighty, this is Devblog number 6 for the FPS plugin, and there have been some decent changes under the hood, mostly in terms of how the aiming system, well, it still works essentially the same. However, fundamentally, because I've changed the first person aspect of it, it has had to change. So, a couple things have happened. Let's just start from the simple stuff. So, for starters, currently anyways, I went ahead and I made a slight improvement to the weapon customization. So as you see here, when I click and drag apart, it locks my mouse. My mouse won't go past the boundaries. And same thing, it's locked vertically. So wherever you click, it's kind of where your mouse is locked. That was just one of those random kind of, I guess, quality of life changes slash improvements. Another thing you'll notice is the neck here is separate from the third person body. You can ignore the arms. So what I went ahead and done was now we also, on top of having a normal, mesh, I wanted to split this up. So we have a head mesh and the normal body mesh. So again, this is optional if you don't have the ability to or don't want to have a separate head mesh. You don't have to do that for the third person. But if you do, again, this will get taken care of for you. It'll be linked and set up as with the master pose component, so everything will be in sync once you actually hit play. And what I mean by that is, well, this. So as you can see, these are actually two separate meshes between the head and the body, and everything is linked together. So that all works just fine. Now, some of the other stuff that has changed underneath. I have switched the first person setup here if you look at the hierarchy. So here's the first person mesh. It used to be a child of the first person camera. So the reason I did this was for mostly the leaning purposes. So instead of having to do some math and try to calculate where everything would be in correlation to the normal animation, I went ahead and did this through, well, it's essentially a third person setup, but with a first person mesh. That's really all it is. So that allows me, so when I look up and down, as you can see, the camera has moved forward, so it moves and leans with the body. And same thing when I lean left, it moves the camera over. So if I peek this wall, for example, as you can see, it moves the camera over as well, instead of just, for example, rotating the camera. So that way, between your third and first person meshes, you should have a one-to-one movement if you have it set up right. Or in my case, I do because I'm using everything through IK and modifying bone rotation instead for leaning and all that kind of stuff. So that, for me anyways, it takes care of that. Let's see. So that has gotten, again, a complete rewrite. That also gives us a couple more benefits. So currently I'm playing as a true first-person character. As you can see, I have no body, but I have a full body shadow, and that shadow contains the head and the body and everything. So that takes care of that whole shadow issue where previously we just had a body with no head. Now if I want to, I can change this to a true first-person character setup and hit play. Now I have a full true first-person body, as well as I don't see the head because the head is hidden. I don't have to worry about hiding that some other way or anything like that and dealing with the other potential issues that may arise with it. Alrighty, now let's move on to the mannequin guy. So I did this in probably, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes, but I wanted to set up a test character with just the mannequin that was just imported. So just to kind of make sure everything worked, and that arose a problem for me. So that problem has since been resolved with this little checkbox here, which I'll explain what it does here shortly. So let's look at the mannequin character. So I have the test character. This is just a default idle animation. This is actually the first person idle animation that comes with the first person template. I just retargeted it and then re-imported it so that way it's facing the correct direction and not offset by 90 degrees, which is always kind of stupid in my opinion, which I don't get why they did that. But anyways, all we have is the character and the animation blueprint. So if we look at the character, what we can see is we have the basic settings. So we have the sockets and all that fun stuff. So if we look at the skeleton, that'll kind of explain what's going on. So we head over here, we have the head bone, and then I have a socket for which I want the camera to be. So I put the socket right here for the camera. That's where my camera is going to mount and attach to. And then we have the virtual bones, which are used for the aiming setup. So those are all a child of the head. So because we're setting those as a child of the head, that in turn, we wanted to make sure we have the sockets named correctly. So we have the camera socket, which is, again, the socket the camera attaches to, which I named the camera, and then the parent bone, which is essentially just the parent of the camera. So here's the camera, here's the parent of the camera, which is head. So in this case, if I head over to, let me go to the skeleton for this guy. I head over to my other skeleton. You can see it's oriented a little bit differently. So in this skeleton, I have a actual dedicated camera bone. And then on top of that, I have a camera socket. So I have done a little bit differently. The virtual bones, again, are still parented to the head, or are a child of the head. Then I have my camera bone, and then my camera socket, which is placed exactly where the camera is, or where the camera bone is supposed to be. It's just rotated to point out in a correct direction for the firearm to be aligned properly. So that's the only difference between the two. So in this case, because I have a different setup, I have the camera bone. So that would be this guy. Yeah, I have the camera bone, which is, the camera socket, which is named camera socket. And then I have the camera bone, which is cc underscore camera, like so. And then after that, we have the weapon grip socket, which in this case is called gun underscore socket, which is this guy right here, which is a child of the hand underscore R. Again, it's just where I attach the firearm to for testing purposes. So that's the only setup that needs to really be done for, any new skeleton. You just need these virtual bones and a camera socket, and then a socket for your firearm to attach to. You can do all those very easily yourself. Then we head over to the test animation blueprint. This is just essentially a copy and paste of the animation graph for the other ones, which I have cleaned up drastically. So it goes through, does all the basic stuff that it's supposed to do. And then I'm not using any sort of fancy stuff. I'm not using like the head rotation or anything like that, even though it would work. Or actually, if I wanted to, I can show you that in action. But that yields us the result of currently, well, wrong body, sorry. Let me disable you and enable you. Now we have the mannequin. We have the random idle pose down here, but we have the mannequin and everything is working about all the same. So we can lean up. And as you can see, it rotates. We can head on back. We can lean and all that fun stuff. So now, for example, with the system, I can show you an example of the head rotation anyways. You can see when I aim, the head is not rotated properly. And same thing goes, I need to adjust the stock height for this. So let's adjust the stock height first. So I'm using the complete firearm here. We head over to, I believe it's it's aiming. Yeah, the aiming tab, we have the shorter stock offset. So I just want to bring, let me rotate, actually I'll move this over in front of it so I can see better. I want to bring the stock, yeah, I think it's okay where it's at, just bring it straight down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab the Z, let's do -5. I believe I have that set to be oriented correctly. Okay, that's a lot better. Let's go just a little bit more, -7. And then actually I want to bring it over a little farther, so let's do -10. So it'll be closer to the shoulder. All right, so there we go. It's nice and positioned right in the shoulder. Now I just want the head to rotate. So how would I set that up? Well, I'll just drag this over. I add another animation layer to keep it clean, and let's just call it head rotation. We want to add an input, and because I've already done all this work for you, you can just head right over to the example portion of everything. Here's our handle head. So we have all this fun stuff checking. So let's just grab it, copy and paste. Like so. Compile and save. And now when we hit play, it would actually probably help if we well, moved it in to use it. So let's go ahead and paste another one in there and set the head rotation. So now we're also running the head rotation that we just copied and pasted. When I aim, as you can see, it rotates the head to get it kind of in line with the sights. So that's how that setup works. Everything's pretty much the same all the way across. Another thing I've started to do, see, this is the third person, yep. So I've started cleaning things up. And what I mean by that is, well, I started cleaning things up. So now we only have these here. We only have 5 for the third person and 4 for the first person animation layers. Each one is relatively straightforward. This sets anything commented red, obviously, is essential. So here we have the setting and essentials. So that's going to set your initial position for the virtual bones. And this is going to use the IK nodes to translate them to that. And then in the middle, obviously we set all the additive stuff. So this is going to be like our recoil, our movement sway, our weapon lag, and all that kind of stuff. And also our spine rotation. And then this is going to set the left hand on the firearm. This is just kind of like the left hand IK to using the fabric node. And then we handle the head. So the handling of the head is obviously rotating the head. So again, that's optional if you really don't want it. You just don't have to include it. All you have to do is delete and it's gone. So same thing goes if you don't want any additive animations. Just delete and it's gone, which you actually do need the spine rotation though. And same thing, if you don't want to use the fabric node, if you want to use the actual, like if you animate and you just use a base pose that you have, you don't want to, do this dynamically. You don't want to follow and add like different types of attachments so that you need to constantly be adjusting your hand position. You can just delete that. And again, it'll all work the same. So that is pretty much the system. I'll give you a brief overview of the arms real quick. So again, it's only 4 and it just takes in the base pose. So I have this here just to kind of give an example on how you could set up for different poses for the gripping. And what I mean by that is, let me actually set that back to a true first person character, or not a true first person character. Oh yes, I forgot to discuss the use parent socket for aiming. I'll do that here in a second. As you can see, I'm not possessing that, that's why. I'm currently gripping the handguard, so I'm playing my normal idle pose. And I'll go ahead and add a forward grip. Let me slide it to the front. Now I'm playing a different pose. I'm playing the pose that uses the forward grip. Again, everything locks and moves as it's supposed to. I'll grab the angled grip. It plays the pose for the angled grip, and so on. So that's how this little section here works. We have this enum that's already a part of the animation instance, so that's already handled for you. Now back to the use parent socket for aiming. So this is dependent on kind of your setup. So if I come back to no, I deleted him. The mannequin blueprint, as you can see, I have it unchecked, but for my own character, I have it checked. So if we go ahead and view the skeletons, go ahead and bring this guy up as well. Let's scroll down. Here's my skeleton, and here's the mannequin. So the mannequin uses the head as the bone parent, or the camera parent. So the socket is essentially, attached directly to the head, which in turn is a direct parent to the virtual bones. We head over here to my guy right here. I have a dedicated camera bone. Now this camera bone does not have the virtual bones as children. Instead, it just has this camera socket. So the camera socket has a parent of my custom camera bone. My custom camera bone has a parent socket, or a parent bone of the head. And then again, the head is the parent of all these virtual bones. So depending on your use case, you're going to have to tinker with it to figure out which one works for you. But it's pretty obvious which one you need based off of the setup. So again, I'll have video tutorials on how to use my system. But for reference, here is using the parent bone. And here is not using it. So as you can see, everything works the same, except, well, it's the position's off. So that's what that there is for. Again, it is a necessity, just depending on your case. Again, your case, you need to set it. So because I have these skeletons being a little bit different, I wanted to kind of cover both situations of the the head bones. So that takes care of it. I think that is pretty much everything, at least that I can think of. Again, most of the work was done behind the hood. So because I made that change for the first person character to be kind of following along with the same path as the third person, or the true first person body, that allowed me to, the code is a little bit more complicated, not really by much, but it is shorter because I'm not having to do all these conditions to check and see whether or not, take different cases. So if you're a true third person character, you have to do something a little bit different than if you were just the first person arms attached to the camera. So there's some differences there, but I think the benefits outweigh the negative, which I can't really think of any negatives, honestly, because one, you only have one set of virtual bones, and realistically, the animation blueprints between the third and first person, they're identical. They're the exact same, so it's just grab one and plug it in, you're done. That's literally all there is to it. So if I really wanted to, I could take my first person mesh here and I'll set it to use the third person animation blueprint. Make sure I'm using it, which I am. So now when I hit play, I'm using the blueprint. So as you can see, the way to tell anyways, is the the charging handle. It's the top corner just barely shows as I'm breathing, just so you can see the difference. I am using different idle animations. And if I switch it back to use the first person animation blueprint, as you can see, it's in a completely different position. The charging handle is completely showing, but they still work all the same. So yeah, it's literally a one-to-one. The only difference being the input animations, and that's literally it. You just set those up yourself to however you want. You don't need to have this enum here if you don't want to. If you really wanted to, you could just plug in, a simple base pose. And that's all I have right here. And there you go. Everything else is going to work all the same. The only difference is you're not going to have the differences in your positioning, or the differences in your grip. That's going to remain about the same, and all that fun stuff. So that is it. That's pretty much the end of this video. I'm just going to tinker around for a couple of seconds because I want to add a little bit of a bigger range of adjustment to the angled optic real quick. But yeah, that's all. If you like it, leave a like. If not, dislike it. I really don't care. I'm having fun. So I will see you in the next video. That should give us a good bit of adjustment there. I think that'll be near the end. Put you near the front. Yeah, that works. Kind of hard to see though, especially considering I have that stupid dot in the front. Anyhow, I'll see y'all in the next video.